Hello, this is Don Austin, Superintendent of the Palo Alto Unified School District, and here tonight to welcome you to Backstage with the Superintendent. We have a special event tonight where we're going to be trying to gather some input from our stakeholders about the next phase of our dealing with COVID-19. We're going to talk a little bit about your thoughts regarding opening schools in August, what that might look like for our school system, what you need as a family or as students. We have students tonight. We sent out notification to all of our middle and high schools. So happy to have all of you with us tonight, and also looking forward to your feedback. Our partners at ThoughtExchange are running the event this evening. They'll be facilitating, explaining how it works, getting you all signed up so that you can participate easily. You're only going to have a couple questions tonight, but our questions in this round are very open-ended. And for those of you who have any issues tonight or you want to share with your friends later, this webinar, like all of ours, will post immediately to YouTube, and the opportunity to answer question number 2 will extend for several more days. So this is not a one-shot opportunity, but it is something that you can share with your friends, neighbors, and those who are just unable to be with us for the entire time tonight. This is obviously a complex time, not only for our school district, but for the entire country. And I got to tell you, when you're right in the middle of solving problems or at least trying to problem solve with groups, there becomes a time when you need some fresh eyes. And we're looking forward to more eyes on this problem. We're ahead in some areas. We're probably a little behind in some areas. We've had some successes. We've had some places that, good enough for the very short-term crisis piece, but not good enough for the full. So we're going to help you walk us, or you're going to help us walk in a good path together. On behalf of the Board of Education, though, I want you to know your feedback is really valued tonight. It'll be a part of our future work. You'll see the feedback come to life. So appreciate that. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to Shannon Terrell. Hi, Shannon. So Shannon is joining us. Shannon is going to be our facilitator tonight, and she works with ThoughtExchange, and she'll be walking you through the process. So Shannon, it's all you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Can everyone see a purple screen here? Let's see some nodding heads. That's great. All right, so we're going to bring you right into an exchange. The way to join is to use your iPhone to scan the QR code on the screen. Just open up your camera app and point and shoot, and you'll have a little drop down come down from the top. Otherwise, you can navigate to tejoin.com and enter the 9-digit code you see on the screen. And the question we're asking are, what are some thoughts, concerns, or questions that are on the top of your minds right now? So we'd just like to open up the conversation, find out where everyone's at, and go through some of those top thoughts together. So I'm going to give everyone a minute to jump into the exchange. And once I see that we're all in here, I'll go ahead and start the timer, and I'll give you some silence so that you can think and ask questions and consider the thoughts of others in silence. Once you've entered the thought exchange, participating is really simple. You'll share your thoughts in response to the open-ended question. You can share as many as you'd like. Then you can move on to the star step. And at that point, you'll have a chance to rate and consider the thoughts of others. Once you've rated about 15 thoughts, you'll be prompted to move on to discover, but I encourage you to go back to that star step, try and rate as many thoughts as possible. Right, so we've got just under 400 people in the exchange now, so I'll go ahead and start that timer. If If you're joining us a little bit late and you missed that QR code on the screen, you still have an opportunity to join. Just go to tejoin.com and enter the 9-digit code on the left-hand side of your screen. If you're new to ThoughtExchange, as I'm sure many of you are, you should know that a ThoughtExchange is completely confidential. Your identity will not be tied to any of your thoughts or your ratings. So we're about halfway through the time now. If you have not moved on to the star step, please do so now. And again, it would be great if you could rate 15 to 20 thoughts or more. We've got a lot of engagement happening in this exchange. So the more ratings we have, the more robust our data will be. We get less than a minute left. Try and keep rating thoughts. All right, and that's time. You will have another opportunity towards the end of this session to share your thoughts again. So I'm going to go ahead and close this exchange. And I'll hand it back over to Dr. Austin to go through some of the top thoughts. So here is our first thought.
All right, so I'm looking at this for the first time along with everyone out there because this was happening in the moment. That's not very scary, by the way, kind of terrifying. All right, what training or support will it be for teachers and families to make online school better? This is new for me, yeah. First of all, completely fair question. I think, one of the things that we tried to do in the school district is to be as honest as we could be from even before the closure, that if there were to be a closure, the instruction would not replicate what students were getting in the classroom. If that was the case, we would have built ourselves as an online school in the first place. I think what everyone is seeing is that people are missing the interaction with their teachers. We've also had some difficulty and challenges, and I've seen a few questions along the theme of more than semantics, but what does online teaching and learning mean? And for some people, they think that this synchronous exchange like we're having tonight is the only way that we can call something online instruction. We're going to continue to disagree with that piece. But there were some things that came out loud and clear. Some percentage of synchronous learning, if we remain closed for any given period of time, is required now. If we move into the fall, we cannot stay away from synchronous instruction. So we're trying to define exactly what that would look like. We also have learned pretty loud and clear that having a schedule for students, if we remain closed, is important. And we didn't start that way, and it was going to probably have so many unintended consequences in the moment that we didn't go back and create one. But moving forward, there'd be no excuse for that. We're definitely looking that direction. As far as the training, I get it. If you're at home right now, you can't possibly see what our teachers are going through with professional development, lessons that have been posted that are extraordinary, the sharing that's taking place that's unprecedented. You're seeing something that looks like a lesser version of teachers in front of students, and that's also fair. Heading into next year, it will look different for everyone. The high schools and middle schools have already pretty much roughed out a schedule for next year if we have to open blended, which we are anticipating. Elementaries are not there yet. So, as far as tools, we're even looking at things like UC Scout right now, which will be a big help for our high schools. That was not an instant just sign up and you get it at your fingertips thing. I understand there's people really wanted that, but we have explored it, and I think we're going to sign up and use UC Scout. Also, fuel education. So we're really trying to build this program for teachers. It's going to look better for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Austin. So this next thought is around scheduling.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. So will parents have a say in scheduling? Yes. I mean, there are a lot of layers to that question. I mean, this is one where if I was sitting across from somebody, I would say, well, tell me exactly what you mean by that. Will there be a more concrete schedule for periods where students are not in front of a teacher? Yes. Will, I see the question here, family dynamics. Secondary level, if we open in a blended learning, which means part of the week you're with a teacher and part you're not. At the secondary level, right now that day is sitting on Wednesdays. I know at one point in time it was going to sit on a Friday. We got some feedback on that and made a shift to Wednesdays. Elementaries, we don't know yet. That is still much more under development, and that's going to be something I hope to learn from tonight with parent and student feedback. Um, as far as options, will we have an online only option? Will we have a blended only option? Again, we're going to create the plan based on the feedback. It would make no sense for us to go out and make an online only option if no parent wants that for their family. Conversely, if that becomes largely popular, then we're going to need to figure that out. So yeah. So the short answer is yes. That's why we're here tonight.
Wonderful. So the next couple thoughts in here are also around, the online portion of the year and how robust that will look. And you did touch on that a little bit. And I want to highlight this thought about ensuring that school programs are safe for staff, students, and families. We have another thought down there about keeping teachers safe as well, especially those in vulnerable demographic categories. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Wow. Yeah, unfortunately, the information, to no fault, it's just, this is an evolving conversation. So the information we receive from the professionals in the industry changes so rapidly that it's hard for us to keep track. I get it. Santa Clara County today released their next order, which was a lightening up on some restrictions. But there's some other areas that are very important to schools where the county Public Health Department and California Department of Education have been completely silent. So there are things that we really need to figure out together. Also, there are differences with what is age appropriate. So, an expectation for a junior in high school might look different. Well, in fact, it has to look different than a first grader. So we have to work through some of that. As far as things like mask and some of those protective measures, we've ordered the mask. We expect that will be part of our opening, and have no idea how long that will extend. But with the information we have right now, it looks clear that this will be a guideline from the Public Health Department. So we're not waiting. We've already ordered. We've already ordered 100 scanning thermometers. So, we're gonna do that work also. For staff, the guidelines are just starting to come in about staff and who might be in risk groups, age factors, health factors. We don't have a great answer for that right now, and neither does anybody in the county, at least. So we're going to reach some of those conclusions and answers together with the county. I wish I had a different one for you right now, but we just don't. We're going to hit on the topic of hygiene enough to where that's going to feel like that's the only thing we're talking about. One thing we can control is how often we stop school and have kids wash their hands and do those things that we know make sense. We also control to some degree how often we're able to sanitize high use areas. So those things are going to be routine, communicated to everyone often. We're going to have signs, posters, and very routine practices. We're also looking at things such as entry points, exit points, how we can stagger entrances and exits and social distance to the best of our ability. But I need to be really clear on this one. We'll see how it plays out for all age levels, but common sense tells us that if you are in TK through third grade, once you're in a classroom, you are going to be around students closer than 6 feet. Little kids are going to touch their face. I am trying so hard not to right now, and I know I've touched my nose at least 3 times. If your nose itches, you're going to scratch it. And if you're a little kid, you are also. We need to be realistic about what we can do. And to some of this, it's going to be like, okay, I've seen you touch your face 5 times. Go over and wash your hands real quick. we're just going to have to use some common sense approaches.
Yep, that totally makes sense. And, kind of in that same vein of how we need different plans for different age groups, I'm seeing a lot of thoughts in here about younger children specifically. So, you've touched on it, but is there anything else you wanted to add about
Yeah,
this is
I
going
sure
to look
do. All children are not equal in our school system when it comes to their ability to be at home or to work independently. And the younger you are, the more true that is. We did the high school and middle school schedule first because, quite honestly, it was the easiest. We built the schedule first, and we're going to build the program around the schedule. We're doing the opposite with elementary. So with our elementary, we're trying to build a program, and the principals know. And just remember, it's not possible for me to interact with every single person who works in our school district, but I can have daily contact with our principals, and I do. Our principals know that their charge is to find systems that can work and that are defensible, but that get our youngest learners with us every day. And if not every day, as close as we possibly can to every day. So maximizing the youngest learners' time on campus is an absolute priority.
All right, great. And a lot of thoughts in here about synchronous versus asynchronous teaching. What is the district thinking in terms of that?
Well, if there's an area that we didn't need ThoughtExchange for, this is it. we've had a fair amount of opinions shared on this one. Can we have more synchronous teaching? Short answer to that, yes. Yeah, we can. I saw some comments earlier that the district had banned synchronous or Zoom meetings. That's an absolute false rumor. And it's one, I'm glad it showed up because clearly enough people in here had heard or thought that they had heard that was true. That's absolutely not true. What we had said is that it was not required. There's a very big difference there. Some teachers are touching synchronous more than others, some because of the grade level that they teach, some their comfort with technology, some the nature of the content area that they work with. We have heard the desire for more synchronous teaching. What we've said before, and we still stand by it, is Zoom was not created as a classroom platform. It was created more for what we're doing right now than for a classroom platform. It's developing some nice features. I still don't think it's great. It'll be I shouldn't say that. Zoom is great. Zoom is not the educational platform tool that we would have selected first in a perfect world. It has served a great purpose for us short term. So a huge, huge distinction between those two things. But, Screencasty, there are other tools that are probably as good, if not better. Zoom was the first one that everyone went to. So, the synchronous part, it's funny. I can't have a meeting that has more than 4 or 5 people on it where somebody in the room, and I'm talking about adults, doesn't have something funny or annoying happen that we're not having to tell somebody to mute their feature, or you've got something walking behind them or someone stumbling in the room. Well, do that with 20 second graders. So again, the age appropriate part really matters. I think when we talk about synchronous teaching with some of our older kids, it might be completely appropriate to expand on that. And our teachers are aware of that. And they're working through some of those things right now. We're already starting to see it increase. So
that's great. And speaking of this world that is not perfect and we can't plan anything for, what would the plan be if there is a second wave of pandemic? That's a loaded question, but.
Well, first of all, we'll have a plan this time. Really, we didn't start to have any indication schools will be closed until sometime in February, and by mid-March we were closed. So I know that people can look and say, well, how could you have not known? Well, apparently nobody in the United States had a great plan heading in. There's lots of speculation about a second wave of a pandemic, and some of those are experts, and some of the experts are contradicting each other. So I wouldn't pretend to be an expert that is going to say that it is or is not going to happen. I would say that if it does happen, that we will go to a schedule this time that's predetermined, that will be routine. People will know exactly when they're supposed to check in with their teachers. I think that was a huge piece of why we struggled. Teachers will have more places to draw from, meaning some supplementary programs that we just didn't have the first time through. So I think we've learned a lot that'll make it better. I would also say that I'm hoping that we can get back to a blended model as soon as possible. So we'll follow the guidelines, first of all. If part of the plan includes following the guidance of our public health department, that's absolutely what we're going to do. We did it the first time, we'll do it again. We will follow the public health department and not try to be smarter or more all-knowing than our public health department. If they tell us to close, we're going to close.
Thank you. And I'm just noticing the time here, so maybe just one or two more questions from this exchange. But this one is, how are we preparing teachers with the new norm? Teachers also need to take care of their family while providing education to students.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things in there. I can be, and we can all be, empathetic to the teachers taking care of their own families. I think that's a given. The reality is we also are in a profession that means we need to serve others. There are lots of professions right now dealing with this. It's part of what makes it an important profession. And here I know it's saying teachers, but it's all of our employees. Most people here have a family of some sort, and you do need to find a balance. And being here, if you have a family that either has someone that's in one of those high risk categories, or a kid that maybe attends our schools, and you could have a part of the day where they're not in a class and you are working, or the opposite. Your kid could be in another school district and they could be closed down or have a different model. We're going to be as empathetic as we can, but I'm not trying to be cold. In fact, I'm really trying to be the opposite. But the reality is we're in a profession that has to put the needs of others first. And we're going to have to balance it the best we can, but we need to serve our students that are here. They depend on us. And that's true on any day.
Okay. Thank you, Don. All right, and so this last one in this exchange, which will segue nicely into some content delivery from you, Superintendent Austin. Mm-hmm. So what are the plans that the district has in mind, even if they're just initial thoughts for next school year, so that your stakeholders can start thinking about the next year? So I'll let you respond to that, and I will stop sharing my screen here.
Okay. And Shannon, just a time check. Should this be a part where we kind of go through some of the middle of our plan and some of the things we're not sure of? Yeah, sure.
That'd be great.
Okay. Couple things. There are a few things that we had kind of foreshadowed before that have shifted a little bit. Our thinking has shifted, which is normal. It's kind of healthy, actually. We had talked about potentially pushing off start dates. I think that's less likely now. In fact, I think it's highly unlikely. Unless there's a really concrete reason why waiting a couple weeks would help us, we're going to start as scheduled. And part of that is so families can get back to work and do what they need to do. The other part is if a delay is a delay for the sake of delaying, that doesn't make any sense. So If we were told, for example, that if we waited another 2 weeks, there was going to be an order that lifted all restrictions, we'd probably wait. But that would be unexpected given the way information is flowing in right now. So we're going to start on time, I think. We may start virtually, we may start blended. I don't know what it's going to look like, but our start date, I think it's going to be our start date. Secondary schedules are really shaping up. So that's our middle and high schools, grades 6 through 12, looking like an A and a B group, Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday, with Wednesdays being the teacher blended day. That's a little shift. At one point, that was going to be a Friday. And again, that blended teacher day, we're still working with our associations, with our teachers again this week. If everything goes well, we should be able to put something out by the end of this week or early next week about what that's starting to shape up. That'll define scheduling and things. We're going to issue grades in the fall. So, we went to the credit, no credit in the spring. I still fully support that decision. Think it was the right thing to do, given the circumstances. But if we get in the fall, that will not be the case. We will issue traditional grades. One-to-one devices, we've pretty much committed at this point. We were so far into the distribution of devices, we're just going to call it one-to-one. We're going to collect the computers that are currently out with our seniors, and everyone else is going to just keep them. So just not for like life, but you're going to keep them heading into next year so you can do work on it over the summer, and you'll just already have it in your hands. Just make it easier. Working with the principals and the teachers on the instructional program, what that might look like. Our budget is not fantastic. We're in better shape than a lot of places, but there's a lot of unknowns around budget, and people see that even with our city. It's not as extreme, but we're going to have some things to work through with the budget. In our board meeting next Tuesday, we're going to be sharing the next pieces. So basically the next public draft. So we're taking feedback out of this, adding it to what we've been working on, and everyone will get to see where we're at, including the places where we don't know yet. Speaking of not knowing, I was going to give you a couple examples of things that we don't have settled at all yet. Busing. We don't know right now. Is 6 foot spacing a guideline? Is it a rule? Is it going to have a different rule for transportation than in a classroom? We don't know, because if we have 6 foot spacing in a bus, that kind of defeats the purpose of a bus, right? So that could change things quite a bit. Spacing for elementary school kids, and at what age do you have to wear a mask, and what age is it not going to not only be not required, but not even recommended. So I've heard lots of talk about that. I keep hearing 6 and under, but who knows where that'll settle. Our elementary plan, as far as scheduling how kids can rotate in and out, still largely undone. So we're working on that, and I actually had asked them to wait till after we receive some feedback tonight, see if there's anything that jumps out at us. The last one, the stuff that makes school fun. I've said it before, we don't want school to be scary or unfun. I walk around our local Safeway, and it feels depressing. If you have to walk through and every step is scripted for you, and you have to have a mask, and you have to walk in a certain direction, and aisles are empty. If people are smiling, you can't see it, right? It's behind a mask. I don't want our schools to be depressing. Nobody does. So, trying to figure out how can we be safe, but do we really have to yellow tape all our playground equipment, or can we figure out a way to, wash your hands before you go out? Wash your hands on the way in. Have people wipe down the high traffic areas in between. If an elementary school especially becomes a place where we don't hear kids laughing, then we've done more damage than a closure. So really want to be careful about that. So I'll stop there so we can head on to the next one.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Austin.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to jump into the next ThoughtExchange here. And this time, the question that we're asking is, what do we need to do as a district to consider, what do we need to consider rather, pardon me, to make sure that you feel safe and supported as we plan for an eventual return to the classroom? So, given some of the unknowns that Don talked about, we just are really interested in hearing what's still out there. What are those things that you want the district to keep in mind? And let's try and rate as many thoughts as possible so that we have a really good sense of what those are as a group. So I'll give you a little bit less time for this one now that folks know what they're doing. And in case you are joining us late, again, to join a ThoughtExchange, you use the QR code. You can scan that with your phone or navigate to tejoin.com and enter the 9-digit code on the screen. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to jump into the exchange, and then I'll start the timer. And even if you don't have any thoughts to share, we still encourage you to move into the star step and try and rate as many thoughts as possible of others. As Dawn mentioned earlier, this exchange will stay open. So we'll give everyone a chance to participate over the next few days in case they couldn't make it to the webinar. Sorry about that. Just a quick refresh. We're back up and running. Okay, we're more than halfway through. If you have not finished sharing thoughts at this point, please finish that up now and move into the star step. Again, we're aiming for you to rate as many thoughts as possible. 20 to 30 would be perfect. All right, just finishing up here. So we've got about 20 minutes left in the webinar, and we'll go through as many thoughts and source as many themes as we can. But as I mentioned, the exchange will be reopened so everyone can continue to participate until next Friday. And at that point, the district will be going through all of the rest of the thoughts. They'll also have a chance to look through them based on, if you are associated with an elementary school versus a secondary school, so that they can dig into that data as well. So jump over to Discover here. And a great one to start us off, transparency and open communication. We're on that track right now.
Nope, we're totally against it, Shannon. All right, I'm just joking. Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges we've had has just been the desire for instant sharing of every thought that occurs, and that's just not possible. So we are now to the point, and I think we're probably appropriate, maybe even a little late to the table for really reaching out and asking for that next level of communication. But that's exactly what we're doing now. We're doing surveys for students. We've already done some, but we're going to do some more uniform surveying of students, especially our secondary students, because it's just able to give us different feedback. Doing some more with our teachers. Doing some things like this. Honestly, our first attempt at a live webinar was to get questions and answer them, and we just couldn't keep up. It was impossible. We just couldn't manage it. So that's part of the reason that ThoughtExchange is with us tonight, is because you can see how many comments have come in. We have nearly 1,100 live viewers right now. We have some massive number of comments that maybe Shannon, you can help us to quantify. And when you're sitting in front of a screen trying to respond and manage at the same time, you just can't do it. The other thing is we're trying to figure out who is the right person or group of people to be responding to certain things, right? I'm in a position to do some of this work for sure, but in some cases, the best information is going to come from your classroom teacher. So in the beginning, that wasn't real possible, because our teachers were paddling as hard as they could, just trying to keep their head above water. But that's becoming more and more true now, where they do have some space to be able to respond. Same with our principals. And heading into next year, that would certainly be the expectation, to communicate more directly there. The other thing you're going to see, and we've already mentioned it once, but starting Tuesday at the next board meeting, the actual agenda items won't just have bullet points. They're going to start to have some more detail to them. You're going to see a draft. So we're going to open it up and let you see what we're thinking in the moment, including some places like the list I went through of here are things that are in the future we don't have an answer for you right now. And I think people in Palo Alto have appreciated that. Like, we've been as direct as we possibly can. You don't get a lot of sugarcoating on things. And when I speak as the voice for the district on events like this, it's kind of what you see is what you get, kind of a blue collar approach. So hopefully that's working, and we'll see what we can do about the pace of information without it overwhelming everybody.
Perfect. So the next thought is in the same vein: open and honest communication. Misinformation and rumors are detrimental. Couldn't agree more. I know you've just spoken about that. Are there any rumors that you think are out there that you want to take a minute to set straight, or anything along those lines?
That is a double-edged sword, right? As soon as I repeat a rumor, I just made a statement.
We can skip it.
Well, I would say this. If there's a rumor out there that anything has been banned as a tool or an option, I'd say I have a high degree of certainty that we probably want to check a little deeper to see if that actually occurred or not, because really we've tried to open up everything we possibly can. And that's been a place where I've heard um, some rumors about things that just weren't true. I'd say also, if you see something on social media that's exploding and you don't see a single person from the school district anywhere either saying or writing what's being discussed, it's probably worth doing a fact check on it real quick. And people do that for me and for others sometimes. At least I get screenshots of Facebook pages and things. I'm not going to go monitor Facebook, okay, or any of the other avenues that are out there. But if someone sends me a screenshot and says, "I've seen a lot of stuff on this. Is this true?" I respond every time. So if you see something out there that just doesn't sound or feel right, send me a little something, and let's see if we can figure it out. And then if someone feels like correcting it, they can. But I'll tell you personally, I'm not ever going to go back into those sites and do the corrections in there. I'm not ever going to go in and respond to anonymous blogs. It's just not worth it. In fact, I'd tell you, if you're getting your information from anonymous blogs, don't.
That's fair enough. And while we're here, just because I saw this thought come up further down, the best place to go for points of clarification, or if there's any issues, should it be the teacher or the principal or straight to admin?
Yeah, teacher first. Because most issues are going to be around your child's experience. The person best positioned to impact your child's experience is the teacher. Now, if the teacher says, "Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but X, Y, and Z are true, so therefore I can't do what you're asking me," then maybe it goes up to a principal. Okay, but I'll tell you, if we start with the teachers, let's back up. Let's start with an assumption of best intentions of everyone involved. Next, the teacher level, then principal on up. It's usually going to end better.
Got it. Thank you. Let us know the schedule beforehand so we can plan. I assume the district is already has that in the works, and they will definitely let everyone know. Provides sufficient custodial staff and support during the day to sanitize facility while school is in session. Right now, only one custodian is on site during the school day. Anything to add there?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the site. There's some other things we're thinking about there too. So we might need to look at what all staff is doing during the day and say, are there opportunities to enlist other people in some of this maintenance type work, right? So, and when age appropriate, where can kids sanitize their own area after they just finished? If it's appropriate to sanitize your own area at the Palo Alto YMCA, of which I'm a proud member, then we can teach some of the kids some of these things also. I don't want our students going down and doing this sanitizing for an entire area, but they can do their own desk when they're done. So we're trying to find ways to spread it out. If we want to say that sanitizing any given elementary school site throughout a day is on the shoulders of one employee, that's a bad assumption. So we need to have a bigger army, but we're also not going to go hire some number of additional custodians for each site. That's not in the cards either.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, and another one about daily attendance scheduling for elementary students, for parents who need childcare and for students' well-being.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier, but it's worth repeating. Everyone has their priorities, but I would say mental health of students is, if it's not number one, I don't know what is. And we do think that it's important to have kids with us at all time, and for the mental health, well-being, students, parents, everyone involved. We're going to try to get them with us as much as absolutely possible. You know, the other thing is, we've talked a lot about closures and blended learning. I want to say that all the schedules revert back to normal schedules as soon as they are cleared. So if we start at the secondary level with 2 days of instruction face to face and 3 days of instruction and assignments off campus, I'm telling you, the day after we're cleared to return without those restrictions of spacing, we're doing it. So we're not signing up for a guarantee of a semester or a year. We're starting this way for a purpose, and the purpose is to adhere to the recommendations, the guidelines, or the orders of the public health department. And as soon as those aren't in place, we're going back to our normal schedules.
Right. And again, about this mental health and social emotional learning piece. So kids feel a sense of community even with the restrictions. It's not just about staying safe physically. So I've seen a lot of thoughts in here about social emotional learning and health, and I'd love to hear what the district is thinking along these lines.
Yeah. First of all, I totally agree. I see it in my own community. My own community here in town is full of our students, and I see them outside. I can tell you this: our students are not all locked up in a house. I can tell you that with certainty. And for the most part, even the little kids I see out are, pretty good about their distancing. But if they're riding a scooter around in a parking lot and they're 8-10 feet apart and wearing a mask, to hear them laughing and to see the interaction, and on top of it, they are within the guidelines. Great. I agree. I think with the restrictions, it's going to take some things off the table, or at least set an expectation that some things are off the table. But I agree that just being back in a routine of any sort will be a winner. I don't think it destroys a kid's experience to have to come in at a designated time to a designated entrance and do a real quick temperature check. That doesn't ruin your experience. But if that helps us be safe to get you into a routine where you can have interactions, that's totally worth it. And we're going to do those things.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Okay, and this next one, option to stay home and do all remote would free up more resources for students that need to be on campus for families with working parents. I'm going to assume that word is.
Yeah, I was interested to see if this one showed up, and it did. Yeah, it's tricky. We think that there's going to be some desire for families to have a purely online option available, regardless of how we open. I think this is a good example, though, of one that we need to do some additional polling with our families, specifically around this question. I'd be interested to know what grade level this came from, and how many people we're talking about. And I think it'd be impossible for the families to really make a decision without knowing what that program is going to look like. All right. So on one side, we have some dissatisfaction with our online program. And on this side, we have a desire to be purely online. I'd want to know what changed, or what would it mean for somebody to say, I want a purely online program, and can we deliver it? And if there's a percentage of people that say, yeah, this would be really important to us, I'd want to know more about that. I think our Board of Education would want to know more about that, because we need to designate some resources for that work, and we could. So this looks like an area that we should anticipate more questions about.
I agree. There's lots in here about that, so it'll be interesting for you to dig in afterwards.
Okay.
So we touched on this a little bit in the last exchange, but it's come up again. There needs to be a plan for teachers who are in a high risk category. I am an asthmatic and have 2 people in my family living with me over 65.
Okay. Emphatically stated with the exclamation point. I get it. Look, lots of people are going to have risk factors of some kind. So this is an example. I see If we count 2 people over 65 as 2 plus asthma 3, this one person has 3 risk factors. I don't know what percentage of our staff will have risk factors yet. We're doing some research around what guidelines might be. I've heard 65 is a risk. I've heard 60 and I've heard 50. So if it goes to 50, then your superintendent's going to be in a risk factor too here soon. We don't know what we're going to do here yet. At some point in time, we're going to need some more concrete guidance, and we're going to have to figure out what's practical. If a risk factor drops to 50 and over, that is a significant portion of our working force. 65 and older is, now I'm talking about employees, so not who they go home to or who they're in contact with. 65, that number drops quite a bit, but we have a not tiny number of employees who are over 65. So, you know, 2 things. Good for you if you're over 65 and you're working and feel great about your work. But next, we need to make sure that you're not in any increased danger. So we have some things to work through here for sure. And like a lot of pieces of this, it's going to need to have a prioritized plan. So I'm sure we're going to start with employee personal risk factors and then work backwards. This one's super, super complicated for service workers, including everyone in the education field.
Right. All right. And we talked about this a little bit last time, you know, that idea, if there is a second wave, what's the protocol? And at least going forward this time, you know, we would have this experience to help guide us. But has there been any thought to this? How will COVID cases be communicated? So if a kid has been exposed, what's the district's stance on that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fair question. Again, the guidelines change all the time. So if we go back to March, if there was a case of COVID at a school or in anywhere, it was communicated widely. It was a big, big news topic. And then as the numbers really grew in Santa Clara County, our direction from the public health department was quit reporting it. Report it to us, you know, meaning the public health department, through the appropriate channels. But their direction was to not report it out because there would be a reporting, multiple reportings for each of the cities every day as we're now in the thousands of cases. Well, now they're talking about contact tracking and doing things differently again. So I don't know where we're going to land on this. So this is not a case of secrecy. We're going to follow the public health department guidelines on reporting, and I just don't know what that's going to be when we get to August. So that is a place that what I will promise is that whatever those requirements, those guidelines are, we'll communicate those with all families. So if it's an issue where we're not going to report every case broadly due to the guidelines, we'll tell everyone that. And I'm sure there could be disagreement about that, but we're going to at least do that piece. If it's a situation where they want to communicate with everyone in a school or within a cohort, then we'll do that also. So a lot of words to say, whatever the rules are, they will be clearly communicated and followed by the school district.
That's great. And with just one more minute here, I'll pull up this last thought for you to close us out.
Okay.
Be transparent in your planning for how students will be supported. Let us know what will be done to support learning in person and remotely.
Couldn't agree more. And I think you're going to see the next version of that Tuesday at the board meeting. Again, don't expect to see a full-blown plan. In fact, if we did, I think that'd be pretty disingenuous. But you're going to get to watch it being made, and we're going to go through all the input we received tonight with the help of ThoughtExchange. I really appreciate that, Shannon. So this is kind of my closing comments. I want to thank you and ThoughtExchange. With a lot of pre-planning that went into this, and your facilitation was really appreciated. And also for Derek Moore for his work on the district's side of things. Transparent, I just want to make sure we're all in the same definition. We're going to share and ask for feedback all the way through it. It does not mean everyone's going to like everything that happens or that they're all going to have veto votes. So that's not transparent. That's a different level. But looking for input, reaching out, doing things like we're doing tonight. This is one of several that we're hoping to do. Doing our open board meetings with comments, showing it being made, working with our leaders. That's kind of who we are. That's who we are. It's who we're trying to be even more of.
Thank you so much. So again, as a reminder, I'm going to open up this exchange again right now. It will be open until Friday. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's right.
So please come back in, share more thoughts, and rate as many as you can. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone who viewed with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Again, I believe it's just question number 2 that's going to remain open. Is that correct, Shannon? Yes. Question number 2 is going to remain open until Friday. So get your stuff in, and thanks for hanging in with us. Really appreciate everybody. We're almost to the finish line of this phase, and hopefully some brighter days ahead. All right. Thanks.